All right, we will go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Today we are going to be talking about the procedures, policies, and best practices of 29C.20 claims for the Executive Council. The Executive Council handles a number of things, but today specifically we are going to be looking at just the 29C.20 items. So if you have questions regarding anything else, I'm happy to stick around at the end of this meeting so that way I can help address any questions that might come up. And speaking of questions, as those questions come up, I'm going to ask that everybody put their questions in the chat box. I can monitor that while I'm doing the presentation. So I'll either address questions as they come in, or if I know I'm going to talk about it here shortly, I'll wait to cover it then. If not, I will keep it for the end of the meeting. So just type in your questions as they come up. At the end, the last meeting, we kind of just did a group conversation for anybody that wanted more clarification on anything to talk through the process. I'm excited to see a lot of familiar names and faces and a lot of new people too. So I'm excited to have this opportunity to talk you through the policies, procedures, and best practices. This is going to rely very heavily on best practices and procedures. I'm including policies on the slideshow and slide deck. So if you have any questions, they're included in there, but I may not go over every tiny detail. So if you want the slide deck, I'm going to ask that you email Executive Council at tos.iowa.gov. And with that, we'll kind of get started. Many, if not all of you, are somewhat affected by the 29C.20 process. And I want to take this opportunity to talk to everyone about this. On this call today, I am joined by Tammy Hollingsworth with the State Auditor's Office. She and I are your first email whenever anything happens along the 29C.20 process. I'm also joined by Cheyenne Vinzik with the Treasurer's Office in our accounting department, and also Christy Onstott. She is my backup for Executive Council. So you will see her name and you see her face here in this meeting, and she can help with questions when I'm out, or she knows how to get a hold of me when I'm out. So this is a two-way street with this policy procedure with best practices as it relates to best practices. So we're providing a lot of information today to help you navigate the 29C.20 process, but I'd also like to open this up as a two-way street if there are things that you're finding that you're struggling with or that we can maybe do better. I would like to open that two-way street when it comes to feedback. Executive Council meetings have moved to a monthly format for the most part. So that used to be a weekly meeting, and is now moved to monthly. And now that monthly meeting, and for the most part, it's scheduled for the first Monday of the month, with the exception of January. And then in the months of July and August, we've actually scheduled 2 meetings for those months to help with the holdover process for the end of the fiscal year, to kind of help us get as much as we can done and off the books for the fiscal year. That schedule was posted in the last Executive Council agenda. If you have any questions, again, feel free to email the Executive Council email distribution list, and I am happy to get through that. And with the move to monthly meetings, I have changed the deadline for 29C.20 claims. It used to be the Thursday at noon before a Monday meeting. With the move to a monthly meeting, items need to be to me for 29C.20 claims, meaning that the auditor's letter for recommendation to the Executive Council needs to be to me by the Monday before the meeting. Meaning your items to Tammy to be reviewed need to be in well in advance to give her time to actually review that. So letters that I get from the auditor's office for review for the 29C.20 claims, when I have those by Monday, you can anticipate those being on the next meeting. The only exception to things that I pull from the agenda are when I don't have some matching information and I need some more clarification and I need those items to match. And I'll go over that in some later slides here. So the 29C.20 process really has 3 components when it comes to the contact that you have between the auditor's office and the treasurer's office. That first one is going to be within the first business day of the incident that's happened where you're requesting funds or thinking that you might even need funds. So this can be that you're not sure that you'll meet either the minimum or that you'll exceed the maximum. You are emailing Tammy Hollingsworth and myself, but you're emailing a distribution list for the treasurer's office. The reason we use a distribution list is so that way not all information sits with just me in the event that I'm out of the office. This means that the information that you're submitting for agendas comes to a shared email box where more than one person is looking and reviewing and making sure that things are happening and moving forward in the process. And it doesn't get stuck in my email box in the event that I'm out of the office. So you have that first notification that is to Tammy, and then you have, and also to myself or the distribution list. The second item there, within 60 days of sending that notification, you are looking and putting together what you would do for your request for the allocation. And that's supported by contracts, catalog pricing, quotes. You're putting together how much you think it's going to cost for that allocation to be remedied, whether it's fixed, replaced, if it was theft, if we're going through that process. You're doing all of that within the first 60 days after notice. There are some exceptions to that rule, and Tammy and I can work with you one-on-one if there's something outside of the norm. But in that second communication is the allocation process. So when you're submitting your allocation information to us, Tammy's going to be looking and verifying that everything looks good. There isn't tax, there aren't service charges that we wouldn't be able to move forward with. And then she moves forward with an allocation recommendation letter. And so that just means we are going to be basically earmarking the funds. So it comes to the executive council from getting that recommendation letter from the auditor's office and goes before the executive council to vote on whether we can earmark the funds for that emergency allocation. That letter will specifically say that it is subject to the audit of actual invoices. So that second communication from us after you've done the initial, something has happened, it's just making sure that we are allocating the funds for what we think we're going to have to pay. One of the best practices we have in this, and something that we're going to move forward a little more closely with, back before COVID, everybody used to send Tammy and I a packet of information via interoffice mail. So it was a paper packet of all of your documents. One of the things that has, since the pandemic, as we're working more digitally, I specifically really need those items all in one PDF file. So essentially a paper packet electronically. So that way, when I'm matching up Tammy's allocation letter with the letter of the request from the agency, I have exactly the full packet. One of the things I'm noticing as I'm putting things together, I'll get a JPEG image, an Excel spreadsheet, a video, a PDF document, a Word document. I have to take everything and convert it to a PDF. So it really, really helps me out if you send me a packet, so to speak. So that way, when I'm putting everything together, it's a lot easier for me administratively that I'm not putting that together. Our November meeting was in excess of 2,500 pages. So it really does help with time and helping me get the most amount of items on the agenda if you're submitting your emergency allocations and your payment of cost items for claims as one singular PDF file. Once the executive council has approved the emergency allocation, you do get a letter from me saying that the allocation was approved subject to the audit of actual invoices. And this is when you would move forward with actually getting the work done, collecting the invoices, and putting together your second packet for the executive council to review. So then you would take the actual receipts of everything that you're doing. And if you are asking the executive council to reimburse the agency, you're showing us the IET information, the accounting strings of things that were used to actually pay that. You can also ask that the executive council pay vendors directly. You do have to provide us with W-9 information, and do know that that takes a little bit longer on our end if we have to create anything in I3 in order to pay out those funds. So if it is a time-sensitive issue, we do have to be aware upfront if there's anything that we need to be aware of deadlines. But also keep in mind that it is a monthly meeting, and larger meetings can take up to 2 weeks for us on the treasurer side to actually go through and get things put through I3 and to get payment issued. So communication is very key in that. When you're putting together your payment request, one of the best things to do, and a requirement for some agencies, you have to put in your I3 information, your IET information. Where are we reimbursing those funds? when you make a request for reimbursement from the executive council for the treasurer's office to do, if it's in that initial first page of your request, it's really easy for our accounting team to go through and make that payment. What we've noticed in the past, what happens if it's missing, Cheyenne will reach out to an agency, maybe you're out, and then by the time you respond, maybe Cheyenne's out. And so we want to make sure that we're paying things quickly. And so that way there's no delay in payment for anything that you might be incurring at that point. So it is something that helps us out tremendously when it comes to being able to process those quickly. So when you do get that approval letter from me, it does, at that point, it does say whether or not we're recommending full and final payment, whether or not it's a partial payment based on the request, or if Tammy noticed anything like taxes being included in the invoice, whether or not that's being excluded from the payment request. So it is a very lengthy process for getting everything in. But I think those three contact points between the notification that there was an incident that may or may not require executive council to look at allocating and paying something is going to be reversed. The allocation, the earmarking of the funds of what has been for contracts or catalog prices, what the estimates are for that. And then the third part being what was actually paid and what actually needs to be reimbursed. There are some special circumstances that we could go outside of the process. The council does prefer that we keep it to those three very set processes, but there are things that happen that would require that to be different. One of those circumstances would be that you just can't wait to fix something because it could incur additional cost by just not fixing it. So that would be something that, again, you would work with Tammy on making sure that that was something that we agreed that we would just move forward with. Keeping Tammy and I on all emails is a great way to make sure that we are both in the loop of what's going on. If there are any changes, one of the things that I mentioned before too, when I keep something from the agenda, but I have a letter from the auditor's office, is because I'm missing something where I'm not comfortable. Like when I'm trying to match things up, something's not matching. I'm off by, the dollars or cents, or there are cars that are missing that I can't account for. So keeping me looped in as you're working with Tammy on things helps me be able to match those things quickly, efficiently, and to be able to get those on the agenda so that way we can get you guys paid too. I wanted to just give an example of some really great letters that help us tremendously. So you'll see a letter here from Mariah and from Cami highlighting exactly what the amount is very quickly, very briefly, letting me know what the event is and what the IET, what the accounting string needs to be in order for us to pay those funds. So it doesn't need to be something that's incredibly elaborate. It doesn't have to be a full typed up page. Something that helps me quickly take what Tammy has sent from her office to match up with what's going on there. It allows me to put this together and not have to, again, once we're doing everything in one PDF packet, I know that everything that you've intended to submit gets submitted in that packet and it's matched up with that. And so that I'm not creating multiple PDF documents and then kind of putting things together as I think that you're trying to put things together for me. So a lot of it is making sure that the agency is well represented in how they want those funds to be allocated and paid out. All right. So some best practices that help us to get things done much quicker and thus be able to pay these out quicker. Make sure that your email has a subject. There are many agencies, and even with realignment, there are a lot of requests that are coming in. When we're looking at especially those 3 touch points, we know that they're not all happening within a week of each other. So something could happen. For instance, we're still working on derecho claims at this point. I have to go back to emails from 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago to try and put some of that together. It helps me tremendously when emails have subjects that relate to the claim as well as your PDF. So it's really easy. I know for our scanner too, when we scan things in, it comes as just like a numeric number of what scan number it is. If you can take just that extra second to rename your PDF and make sure your email has that updated, it's easier for us to do a quick search with everything in that as well. And after your request has been approved for an allocation, remember to use the auditor's claim number. I use that number in order to help track down the allocation request and to keep track of everything, and also to then work and talk with our accounting team on what needs to be done. Our accounting team uses a different numbering system, so I, so to speak auditor number and treasurer's number to kind of translate that, so that way I can help our accounting team quickly and efficiently get answers to you. So if you use those auditor AOS claim numbers, that helps me out tremendously. And again, making sure that what you're submitting is a packet of information in a one document packet. If you send it to Tammy, make sure that you're sending it to me as well. The treasurer's office, as well as the auditor's office, is not on Google. So when you're linking things to Google Documents or Google Drives, making sure that we have the accessibility to access that will be incredibly helpful. And attaching it for us, at least for me, is much more useful than linking it to something, because I know sometimes when you move things, permissions get changed. And when I'm coming back to something, especially since sometimes this takes a little bit of time to get through the process, it may not still be there, or it may have a different permission, and that can sometimes delay the process as well. So for us, the best practice is to just include it in a way that we can access it or have that accessibility to it too. We do have a website that I'm going to share really quickly here that helps you guys be able to find information whenever you would absolutely need it. So I am like right here. So I will include this link in the chat box. This is also, if you'll notice at the bottom of my emails when I'm emailing back information as it relates to approvals or allocations, it's in my email signature. This is a link to where all the agendas and minutes live. So that way, if you needed to search for anything, you're able to do that. Our website here is searchable. So if you had something that you were looking for or trying to find, it's here. I will say one of the easiest ways I think to find some information is in the agenda packet component of the website in the HTML portion. Because if I open the agenda packet, it's going to take me to the full 800 and some pages from the last meeting, where if I take it to the HTML, you can see here that I could take it and I can just open up exactly what I want and what I'm looking for. And then I can download just the 9 pages instead of filtering through the almost 900 pages from that particular agenda. So I do work to kind of neatly bundle those things together, so that way you have access to them in case you can't find what you're looking for, and in case you can't get, whether I'm out of the office or it was just something that's time sensitive as well. Chrissy, is my PowerPoint still up?
Yep.
Okay. Here. And then really quickly, just over some policies that I wanted to highlight. Claims that are under $2,000 are not reviewed by the Executive Council unless the agency can demonstrate hardship. And that would be something that you would contact Tammy and myself on what that looks like. It may be an appearance where the director would have to then speak to the Executive Council about or answer any questions that they might have about that. We can help kind of navigate that particular instance. Also, every fiscal year, there is an inflation adjustment. It is calculated by the Treasurer's Office the first working day after the beginning of the fiscal year. So if July 1st just happens to be the observed holiday, or if it's a weekend, we do it on the first business day. We calculate that. We then submit it to the Executive Council for them to vote and approve on the adjusted inflation rate for claims. That was something that recently happened in 2021, where the limit up until I think from 1960 or 1979 to 2021 was $500,000. So there has been provision put in place so that way it actually adjusts for inflation each year. So fiscal year 2024's claim limit is just shy of $2 million. And this is just a reminder too, that if you are doing a theft claim, it does need to be accompanied by a police report for the security force of the jurisdiction submitted in the claim. So just making sure that you've contacted the right department to do a report on that theft. And again, not getting too much in the weeds when it comes to the different policies that we have here, but just know that some of them, if there's any kind of a one-off, I will always let agencies know if I think that their director should be in the meeting. It's still currently a telephone meeting. So if there's anything that I think that they may question and I want to make sure that the agency gets clarification and approval as quickly as possible, I'll ask anyone to bring in the appropriate people to the meeting. So that way, if there are questions, they can be directly asked. There's no question in whether or not they can vote or not, or they table it for the next meeting, especially since we're at a monthly meeting. So kind of wrapping up I know I spoke very quickly. What questions do you guys have as it relates to this claims process? Anything, you're welcome to unmute yourself now. If there's anything that I can help clarify, or if there are questions that came up as I was talking.
Can you hear me? This is Stacy
Yeah.
at the State Fair.
Yeah.
This has happened in the past, and I just
Sure.
don't know if it'll be a current practice where, let's say during the fair, we have a weather event, but the fair is in August, and let's say come October, for some reason, we're on top of the grandstand and see roof damage, and we can associate that with some type of a weather event. Obviously, we're not giving you the 24-hour notice or next business day. Is that something that I shouldn't even approach since it's not meeting that deadline?
Well, if you didn't know about, I would say that 24 hours is of the first know that you knew it was happening, and Tammy can weigh in too on this. If you're able to direct that back to that event and that's the first of your knowledge, I would then at that point submit just your notification that this is the first that you've known about it, and that you'll look forward to either having Tammy or I weigh in on whether that applies. I would say for the most part, Tammy, again, weigh in if I'm speaking out of turn here, that it's not really been an issue, because sometimes you just don't know, especially when you think about our parks too, that you may not always have people in and around those things as things are happening.
Right. I would agree with that too, Victoria. Yep.
Thank you.
Great question. If you guys don't have questions, we can most certainly end a little early too. I will stick around so that way anyone that has questions, I can help answer. If they were not regarding 29C20 claims, I can answer any other questions that you might have burning for me. I do know one of the things that we took away from the last meeting was that once Tammy has started working on the allocation, she's going to email out AOS claim numbers, so that way we all have a head start on those AOS claim numbers.
Yeah, I think when the notifications are received, we'll go ahead and log the notification and then just send a reply back letting you know that it's been received, and then supply that claim number at the same time so that you have that.
Perfect.
Thank you for this session. It was very valuable and nice to have. Thank you very much for the time.
You're welcome.
And putting it together.
So if you want slides, go ahead and email executivecouncil@tos.iowa.gov. And once I have everyone who wants the slides, I will just do one email out with the slide deck. Other than that, I'll just hang out to answer any questions, but you are free for the rest of your day.
Thank you.